Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Booking Now. I am your humble and gracious host, Q, and I want to thank you all for joining me again today on this continued journey of empathy, growth, and understanding. We have a very special guest in the show today, and you're going to have to bear with me. It's allergy season. I'm still getting over all the sinuses, so I'm going to do my best to enunciate. And remember, if you would like to be a guest on the show, you can visit our website, www.bookitnowtv.com. So let's jump right into it. Our guest today is Chef Khepra. He is a devout raw foodist who has dedicated his life to showing the knowledge of the live food lifestyle with systematic fasting, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so he has been all over the country, really kind of promoting his stuff through his articles, through his videos, and through his book as well. You may be in the D.C. area. He is the owner of Khepra's Khepra's Raw Food Juice Bar, and his food creations have won him a great deal of accolades, most notably the Washington Post Best Eats. And at the Raw Food Festival, his food was voted number one by attendees in 4 different categories. Best dish, best savory dish, best dessert, and best juice. And quite honestly, I don't know what else is left, but...
Right.
And he also won best raw cuisine at the Best Food on the Planet competition. So I feel the ears perking up now, right? He's also, like I mentioned, added author to his title as well, as he's written the book Paradise Health, A Feasting and Fasting Guide to Optimal Health Through Detoxification. I want to welcome to the show Chef Khepra.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, veganism has been a part of my life, as my mom told you before the show here. My dad's been a vegan my whole life for over 30 years.
Wow.
My younger sister has adopted his habits, and she's a vegetarian. And we could talk about those distinctions here in a minute.
Right.
But I would love to know maybe a bit more about you and your backstory and how you got into the lifestyle.
Wow. Well, yeah, I guess let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
I grew up just, my mom, who, she cooked for our family. We pretty much ate, I don't want to say your standard American diet, but we definitely ate, I guess what I could say, what most people ate. Definitely not vegetarian or vegan. We ate, chicken, pork, fish. We had snacks and... and I think my mom did the best she could in terms of the information she had to give us the best food.
The healthiest options. And
exactly.
Given the circumstances.
Exactly. And, I pretty much, when change started to happen, I guess once I started to, get access to information. Once I started to read, different books. And, I grew up as a teenager. This is the mid to late 80s.
Okay.
When I was a teenager. And, around that time, growing up as a young person, hip-hop culture was like just this like fresh. I mean, that was the word. Fresh.
Right.
It's fresh.
It's
that
fresh.
was one of that was one of our terms, And so with that, there was also a consciousness that came with that. So, like black consciousness in terms of like people started wearing like African medallions and I was very enlightened and very curious about just everything, any sort of knowledge and information that I could get my hands on. And it was really through the culture and the art form, specifically through hip-hop, where I started to get curious about like just not only politics and consciousness and history, but also health, and it was really going through that way where I would find, like I would go to the street vendor who had all of the kind of books that I'm talking about dealing with politics that you won't find necessarily in your library,
right?
But you would find it, on a man who's selling these books. And I would always gravitate to the health books. And of course, at that time, Probably my first books that I read was, Dr. Africa, African Holistic Health.
Okay.
Um, How to Eat to Live by Elijah Muhammad.
Okay. Yeah.
Queen Afua.
Mm-hmm.
Heal Thyself. So, and then Dick Gregory.
Of course. Of course.
Cooking with Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
So those are like a few examples of like some of the books that made a huge impact on me. Just I don't even think I was really out of high school at this point.
Interesting.
So I immediately gave up like red meat at that point. So I
Through
think
the readings.
Just understanding like, okay, we don't need to eat animals necessarily to get what we need nutritionally and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately just stopped eating pork and beef, and later on started to just cut out all dairy, fish, chicken,
Sure.
eggs, those kinds of things. And so that's really what really was the spark for me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, it became, because again, this is something that, I was making really, well, now looking back, now that it has become really my entire life, especially in terms of just like, having a restaurant and just devoting my life to this lifestyle.
Sure.
It was obviously those early years for me was like learning about like raw food and saying like, wow, I mean, I understood right away like that was really the optimal way to eat.
So what is raw food for those that may not know?
Good question. Well, when we say raw food or live food, basically what we're saying, we're giving respect to nature.
Okay.
And not that fire is not a part of nature, but we know that if we put fire to something, it will alter it.
Sure.
It will change it. If we were to stand in the fire, we would probably not survive.
Sure.
Or we would survive but get burned. So it's like knowing that, and knowing if we put food to the fire, that not only are we going to change the food, we're going to compromise it nutritionally. But when we really start to analyze the food that we have to cook in order to eat, I will say that's probably not meant to be eaten.
Interesting.
So when we say raw food, living food, we all know, like, for example, if we drink a juice, if you make a juice versus buying it from the store, that is going to be different.
For sure.
It's just like no comparison.
There's no negotiation there. Yeah.
Right. Even if you made it a day or two before, that juice is still going to be light years ahead of the juice you buy in the store. And really, in our world of convenience, there's a chapter in my book when how basically I'm highlighting the fact like convenience really leads to inconvenience.
Interesting.
So that's the karmic relationship, because everything in a supermarket, at least 80% of what's in the supermarket outside of fresh produce is built on convenience. So it has to have a shelf life.
Expiration.
So the longer the shelf life, the shorter your life. So everything that's processed and denatured, so it's probably been cooked or burnt or add chemicals, preservatives, chemicals, in order to keep it from, basically to make it such that when you bite it and chew it, that you, I guess, get some enjoyment out of it. So really with living food, raw food, live food, there's enzymes. There's again, and these things are created or built with the growing process. So we like to say like the growing process is the cooking process.
Interesting.
You know, so when food is grown, it's being cooked. You know, and this may take a lot of times months. You know, for something to go, or even years. If you're talking about, like, say, a fruit tree, you know, it'll take a lot of fruit trees especially from seed, to sprout, to develop. You know, start to to start to flower and then root into the ground, and then go through a few years before it gets strong enough to produce fruit, its own fruit, which then now you can take that seed and replant it. That process we want to respect. We want to honor that process because you know, not only are we respecting the cycle of how it was grown, okay, we're also respecting the fact that, or we're highlighting the fact, like when we take fire to something, because when we put fire to anything, basically what we're doing is trying to give it energy. And a lot of times when we're eating living food, we're eating food that has largely sun energy.
Sure.
Okay, so we're eating really processed sunlight. Okay, so food that is not really meant to be eaten by humans, we put fire to in order to make it chewable, in order to make it taste good, because maybe we're concentrating certain spices that are pleasing to our taste buds, and but because of the process, you know. So when I say fire, I'm talking about microwave. Sure. I'm talking about stovetop. I'm talking about oven. I'm talking about deep frying.
External heat.
Any kind of like extreme heat that would compromise us, or indefinitely the food, because what you do to your food, it will do back to you.
Sure.
So if you're eating a lot of like deep fried foods, or, you know, a lot of people, even especially vegetarians, will a lot of times eat a lot of starchy foods. So starchy foods like potatoes and white rice and breads and cereals and these kinds of things, same thing, has to be cooked. You know, a lot of times these things have to be boiled like in water. So the heat you're heating the water. It's like the heat is forcing the water to go into it. Where, like at my restaurant, we do use certain grains and things, but we only have to soak. And if a grain doesn't respond to just soaking at room temperature, then that's when I say, okay, it's not meant to be. It's not part of the human diet. You know, and so we're using heat, and largely with animals too. If you're gonna eat animals, you should eat it how lions and other carnivorous animals eat them. And not only do they eat them raw, but it's a fresh kill. Yeah. Okay. We don't have the physical makeup to catch an animal, to cut it open with, you know, whether it's our mouth or whatever, you
digits,
know,
or
right, and because again, you know, it's really the blood that is the most nutritious part, because that's the juice of. It's just like the juice of a fruit and vegetable is the most nutritious part of a fruit and vegetable. It's the blood of an animal that's the most nutritious, but we want to cook that out. Okay, right. You know, and not only that, and not only it, you know, like the whether it's the muscle or an organ part of the animal that we're eating, a lot of times, or maybe more, maybe 100% of the time, we can't really chew it and our body break it down. Right. We have to use heat, you know, in order to break it down or pre-break it down, in order for us to chew it and digest it.
So how do you define cooking with that? With given these scenarios, right, and with, you know, everything we just talked about with heat, cooking for you is what?
Wow, that's a good question. Great question. Because so cooking is, again, like, you know, to really, the ultimate cook is Mother Nature. she is the ultimate chef. My job as a raw food or living food chef is really just to bring an additional element. I liken like my job as any artist. Especially music. When we look at music, we take a band and you look at all the elements that go into a band: a vocal, percussion, a horn, a string, and we can appreciate all of those things individually. But when we bring all that together harmoniously, we get a song. Okay?
So you're a conductor of sorts.
Yes. So I'm bringing together
a composer, if you will.
Right. I'm bringing together like natural oils, salt,
right,
all the things that we like: salt, sugar, fat, heat, and bitter. Those are like the elements, and I'm bringing those together. Which contain like protein and carbohydrates and things, but all done with respect to the growing process, the nature process, how Mother Nature, again, cooks these foods naturally with the sun, with the earth, with the moon, with the rain, with the wind. All of these things go into exactly. Food that is coming from a farm or a garden, or even if it's just growing wild on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So me as a chef, and as far as how I define cooking, that's how I look at cooking. Now, with that being said, there is an additional element that I would do that is specific to the raw cuisine, and that is dehydration.
Okay.
So a dehydrator is something that I use, which I liken as my oven.
Okay.
That's my microwave. So, and microwave is a bad word to use because it's really the anti-microwave, because where a microwave can make things in 30 seconds, I may have something in there for 30 hours. So again, just taking a page out of Mother Nature's book, because it may take Mother Nature 30 weeks. So I'm now going from 30 weeks, and I'm taking that finished product and saying, okay, I'm going to give it another maybe 10 hours or 20 hours, and then dehydrate, depending on what I'm trying to do. So how dry I want to get it. And I'm going to do it at a much lower temperature that you don't find on traditional ovens. Right. Most ovens will start at like 300, 200 at probably. Maybe you can find ovens that start at 200, but most of them start at, I think, around 300, 350.
Yep, 350.
Again, nobody's going to survive, or nothing's going to survive in 350 degree temperature.
When you open the oven and then...
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, dehydrators will start at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and maybe go up to like 150, 160. So, a lot of times I'll be in the range of like 120, 125. And in that range, I'll be able to get what I want done in a certain amount of time, but then preserve the enzymes, number one, and a lot of times what I like to do is take out some moisture, because the moisture is also the life.
Right.
Anything that has water in it
is
that's the living again juice. And I don't want to take all of it out necessarily. A lot of raw food chefs will what I call burnt raw food. They do what we call complete dehydration.
Okay.
But what I call it is burnt raw food. So it's like, because your body doesn't have any, because our bodies are juicers. So anything we eat should have some water in it. So the body, because that's what the body's looking to extract, that moisture.
Absolutely.
And then move the fiber through. So that's what I define. That's what cooking is for me.
Speak more to your relationship with heat and how you're preparing your meals.
Well, one of the things when I talk about, like anytime I'm doing a class, we'll discuss the 5 tastes within the mouth. Okay, so you got sweet, salt, bitter, sour, and the last one being
savory.
Heat.
Okay.
So that's the first heat, because that's a heat that I don't have to use any kind of device. Like, I'm getting my heat from in the heat category. That's like my onion, garlic, ginger, but then my favorite is the pepper family.
Sure.
You know, that being the hot peppers. So on the weak side, you got your jalapeno, which is probably what most people are familiar with. Jalapeno, maybe
that's the weak side.
That's the weak side.
Okay.
Yes, jalapeno, maybe a chili pepper or something like that. And then, you know, getting stronger, you're talking like habanero. And then getting to some of the stronger peppers, you're talking like Scotch bonnet, fatali, which is out of India. Got some African like ghost peppers. I think the hottest pepper is called a scorpion. It's out of Trinidad. Yeah, so these peppers are extremely hot. Now, as a chef, what I learned was heat works similar to how salt works. When we add salt to a dish, salt will sort of enhance or kind of accentuate everything else. Heat does the same thing. And so what it does when we're adding a little heat, we're not trying to make it spicy by adding, and I'm adding like the hot savory pepper to almost everything that I make. So, and again, the other thing is like the peppers, these are not vegetables. These are fruits.
Fruits, yeah.
Okay? They have seeds. And the seed being the hottest part. As you know, any chef will tell you, like, oh yeah, if you want the seed. So what I'm trying to do is, a lot of times I'm not even using the seed. I'm just using a piece of the skin, and that's giving it some energy, some heat. But it's like when you bring it in your mouth, again, just like you can taste the salt, that heat is like bringing that energy in the palate. And you may not, and it be, you know, if your palate is not trained, or if you just don't know, you're gonna respond because it's that heat. But it's not. If I want to make it hot, then I'm gonna, you know, but that's really the real heat. In terms of when you ask that question. Now, in terms of like a temperature heat, a temperature heat, basically it really, again, depends on the dish. So most of, I'll probably say, because again, you know, like even when I started with the raw food lifestyle, it was just fruits and salads, you know, for months. And I was like, wow, you can make a pizza, or I can make a burger, I can make my own bread, I can do all these things. How could I do this? And I was on a mission to learn how to do these things. And so that was where the dehydrator came in. That was where it's like, okay, now I can use certain ingredients, bring them together, dehydrate them overnight, a lot of times, at a very low temperature, maybe 100 degrees, 110 degrees, maybe 120, 130, and create something like saying, wow, you know, this still, you know, this can satisfy me nutritionally, you know, in terms of me following the raw food, but also satisfy some of the things that I've been used to eating that I miss and enjoy. But then it also, it doesn't give me the feeling, you know, if, like, say if I go out to the burger joint and eat some burger and some French fries, I may feel good while I'm eating, but afterwards, we both know how how you're gonna feel. You know, your body, it's gonna be it's gonna take a toll on your body, and a large part because of the food combination, because of the cooking process, because of the heaviness, just the added preservatives, all of it is going to add to it in terms of how your body feels. But now I'm eating this food where I'm respecting temperature, I'm respecting what you know, nature and how it created these foods. I'm doing it gently. I'm not using any excessive heat, no excessive fire. My body feels that. My body feels that love. It feels that, like, that care. that I put into it, that time, that extra time.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, this is not something again, not built on convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if it's too convenient, it's going to be inconvenient for this.
Right.
You know, so I want to inconvenience myself so it can make this, the health and wellness of my body and my temple,
Mm-hmm.
Convenient.
Right.
And I want that to be convenient, the health of that. So if I have to inconvenience my time by putting that extra effort and love and energy into it, then that's worth it.
Absolutely. And what is the process, the cooking process and the digestion process? How has that affected you psychologically?
Well, it's definitely a whole mind body,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Spirit. In terms of, we talk psychologically or psychic.
Mm-hmm.
We start to get really in tune, because really what happens is there's a chapter in my book where I talk about raising your sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is, when we look at, let's say we take person A and person B, and person A drinks, eats whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and never gets sick.
Mm-hmm.
But person B doesn't do any of those things but gets sick much more frequently than person A. Now the question is, which person is healthier? I would say, because the person A is doing everything under the sun.
Right.
He's never getting sick. He or she never getting sick. So somebody could, people could definitely make the argument that person A is healthier because they don't get sick,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't, at least not for the particular moment.
Right.
And I would say that person B is way healthier, because a lot of times, when our body is sending us signals like of discomfort, that is the body being alert, being awake, being
Sure.
sensitive.
Sure.
When it's just like if we were to walk into a smoky room, we would start coughing. That's
right.
a sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
a good
Mm-hmm.
thing. So the more sensitive we become to environment, to the air we breathe, to the food we eat,
Mm-hmm.
the healthier we are. So when you talk about raising your sensitivity, now you start to raise your mind. You start to raise your psychology, as you mentioned, and now you become not only more sensitive physically, but emotionally, definitely mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Become way more alert, and that's really, and especially, it goes up a notch once you start to introduce fasting,
Mm-hmm.
or not eating,
Mm-hmm.
because now the body is taking unused energy and putting it in, channeling it into other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And initially what happens is, when we stop eating, the body will start healing, or really start speed healing.
Mm-hmm.
The body's always trying to heal, but once we stop eating, we give it a chance to really do its job, which is why we have to intentionally stop eating, because again, we live in a convenient world. It's all built on convenience,
Mm-hmm.
but again, makes it inconvenient.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Again, it's all a give take.
Excuse me.
The other thing I like to say is pain and pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
If we make it painful or inconvenient, the inconvenience is sometimes painful.
Right.
But again, we experience the pleasure is coming. But, and that's really just a kind of a maxim for life,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like understanding that relationship between, again, convenience, inconvenience, pain, pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And really to bring it back to what you were saying about, remind me real quick, in terms of the question you asked.
The psychological effects.
The psychological effects.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get in front of of the body in terms of even becoming sick. You know, and saying like, okay, I'm going to, because when we get sick, often what happens is we lose our desire to eat. So the body now is trying to force you to fast. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to get in front of that and make it and voluntarily not eat.
Interesting.
So the body can use that healing energy while I'm well to maintain itself. And then now, you know, once we get to a space where we've done a lot of the healing and reach a good balance, now it just becomes about maintaining. You know, so it's just now, you know, having this kind of off and on relationship with food. You know, so then, you know, like all of this builds and again that sensitivity, which I think really addresses that question, really starts to work at an optimal level.
Sure.
You know, because we want to be sensitive. We don't want to be insensitive and, you know, be able to, it's just like if you don't eat, you know, I hear from people all the time, if they stop eating meat, you know, for a long time and they eat it, what happens? They their body rejects it and they get sick. Right. They've raised their sensitivity. That's a good thing. Right. You know, so that's what we want to do.
And I want to keep talking about fasting, but I do want to take a second and ask you about maybe some of the different misconceptions that people have about raw food, and they hear a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. You're not cooking anything. Right. What are you eating? Right. And you did mention, you know, I can have a burger. I can make a pizza. I can do my own bread.
Perfect
what are some of the dishes?
Yeah. Well, let me say first that, okay, in addition to fruits and vegetables, because that's definitely a part of the diet. You know, we have nuts. Sure. We have seeds. And we do have grains. Typically beans, I get asked about beans a lot. Now beans I would put under the seed category. Okay. And unless for me, if the bean doesn't sprout, it's not optimal for me to eat. Sure. I want it to sprout. So what
are some of the beans that don't sprout?
Well, I can tell you the beans that do sprout. Okay. That I eat.
Maybe that's
and
easy.
then I think everything else is like
falls. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So garbanzo beans or chickpeas. Okay. Yeah, it's a short list. Quinoa. So some people consider that a grain, but a seed, grain, bean, it really kind of
intertwine.
Right. Right. So quinoa, I have garbanzo bean, and there's buckwheat, which we use, which is the primary ingredient. Now it's not wheat. It's like it's a granular. It's like a seed. Okay. And we soak it, and you know, and then we put it in a container so it can sprout. And you know, it's all gluten free, and that's pretty much, you know, that's pretty much what we use. You know, in terms of creating all the dishes that we need to make. In addition to that, we do, you know, we use oils and we use different condiments that fall under our umbrella. And, you know, with that, we pretty much are able to create just about any and everything. You know, with, again, and with fruit really being the dominant food category, because I do believe that we are inherently fruitarian. You know, where, you know, under the fruitarian diet, you know, fruits are pretty much form the foundation of what we should consume. And when I say fruit, most people think of something sweet.
And
right.
Oranges, yeah, but
most fruits are not sweet.
Most fruits are not sweet. Right.
You know, a pumpkin. You know, we have a whole holiday dedicated to the pumpkin. Yeah. You know, because again, that was
whole season.
Right, that was originally harvest season. You know, which they commercialized, you know, into something else. But that pumpkin, that's a fruit. You know, those pumpkin seeds, those are like super nutrition right there. and all the whole squash family.
You just
from
mentioned the
butternut
peppers.
squash. We mentioned the peppers. So we got peppers that are sweet. We got peppers that are and that are hot. And everything in between.
Right.
So again, all fruit. Tomato. Tomato is like
one of my favorite.
I mean, that's definitely a super fruit. Fruit, because as a chef, tomato falls under 3 of the 5 of the taste that we mentioned.
Did we mention that?
Yes. So it has a sweet, it has a sour, and it has a salt. It's naturally salty, and so tomato. That's why tomato is so versatile. You make ketchup, you can make barbecue sauce, you can make marinara sauce, you can make salsa. I mean, the list goes on and on with the tomato as being the foundation of all of those things. So now you can see how creative you can become in terms of creating dishes that we've been used to just using fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, sprouts. Pretty much that. And from everything to protein entree dishes to side dishes, of course, or just an array of salads.
Sure.
And I mean, it's just a wonderful art and science, that I'm really proud to, have not only made my lifestyle, but to be able to have the opportunity to share with others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some of your most popular dishes, or some of the dishes that you just enjoy making for others?
Well, my signature is what my restaurant is now called, and it's hemp burger.
Hemp burger.
Yeah, the hemp burger. So the hemp being, being, the hemp seed, which again is one of the highest sustainable proteins on the planet, loaded with all of the essential protein that we need. Definitely a superfood. The Indians, the native peoples of this land called the hemp plant the green buffalo.
Interesting.
Because it gave them everything, I mean, a lot of times I'm wearing things that contain hemp. So hemp is just not a food or a substance that people may partake in, but also, something that could be used for just a wide array of products and things.
And even in America, up until probably around the 40s, it's still being used in those ways.
Exactly. So it's making a comeback, as we all know. Because I think it's, just on the political side, I think it's just going to be something that is going to be needed to stimulate the economy. But that's another.
Sure.
But the hemp burger is definitely one of my signature creations. We really want to, create the curiosity of like, wow, I know what burger is, and I think I know what hemp is, but a hemp burger, that's interesting.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why we even, are rebranding ourselves as hemp burger.
Okay.
And then, obviously the salads, but, we do all of like the dishes like that have been, that are very popular in American cuisine, like burger, pizza, lasagna. We do different savory pies. We do pasta dishes, either using zucchini, or there's what we now get as a kelp noodle, which is kelp is from the sea, so it's a sea vegetable, but it's processed in a way where it's not cooked, it's not nutritionally compromised, but it's something that we can soak in a certain solution to tenderize it, and it tastes better than pasta.
Interesting.
Yeah. So again, we're not missing the beat, and because we're using all of the same spices, but just doing it in a way where everything is fresh. How could it not be
improved?
Oh yeah, I mean it's the best.
Yeah,
it's the best, and the best for your body. And when people eat the food, they feel that. It's like wow, that was very satisfying. Like I could have never imagined. Like this is not only very unique and very creative, but it's like wow, this is. Yeah, and that's why I say the raw food or the live food chef is really Mother Nature's chef. You
Absolutely.
know, karmically. You know, it's like because again, there's that respect, you know, given to the food and how it's processed from whether it's the farmers that you know that help to cultivate that food, you know, under that process.
Yeah.
And you know, we're taking it and you know instilling in it or enhancing the you know what's good and what's you know that whole process and the nutritional integrity of it all. So so how could this not be just not the best for you nutritionally, but the best period. Just that's it.
What are some of the misconceptions you think people have about live or raw food?
You know, I think it's just a ignorance. You know, I think it's just like, you know, like yeah, you know, I don't want that or I won't like that. You know, I think it's just as simple as that, but complex, all in the same. I mean, you know, I'm going against generations of tradition, marketing,
right,
propaganda. I mean, it's like it's almost like the odds are just really like 1,000% stacked against like what I'm going against.
Do you think it could also, excuse me to cut you off, but do you think it could also be a product of maybe 20 years ago when the food maybe wasn't as, I guess, delicious or palatable for those who are used to that diet that you're talking about?
Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, I know a lot of people who may have had tofu before in their life and didn't agree with the taste. And so now they define the entire cuisine with that one experience.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned tofu because, you know, one of the things, and I do also have a chapter in my book that I talk about, like, you know, and this is really aimed at the vegan, vegetarian diet because we don't, you know, the living food diet, the tofu and the soybean is not, we know, you know, the research has been done and I've seen it with my own eyes where the tofu and the soybean is not ideal for human consumption.
Interesting.
So with the tofu, because what's interesting about the tofu, now if somebody eat tofu, what is there to like about that?
The tofu,
there's no flavor. There's nothing. You're eating a glue, a paste, really a plastic. That's what I call tofu.
Plastic.
It's like you're eating plastic. Yes, and it's not going to process, so it's going to wreak havoc on your system. And why is that? You're like, well, this is plant-based and this is supposed to be better. But the thing is like the tofu heavily processed food.
Right.
And just because it's a plant doesn't mean that it is fit for to be eaten. And so I'm going to get back to your question, but I really wanted to take a minute at least to address that because the tofu shouldn't be a good experience.
Okay.
Unless you, again, you know, doctor it up with the cooking process, similar to how you would do chicken
or beef.
Or right. The tofu fits really under that same category because, again, it's not, you know, because really and this goes for most food is, you know, because even when we look at tofu was never really a part of the human diet. And if it was fermented, you know, and the fermentation process is really to create some enzymes so that your body can process it. Now, if we look at the tofu or the soy industry, was started with the demand, or really the created demand for soy oil, and that was to replace coconut oil and palm oil, which were the dominant oils some years ago. So there was a campaign, again similar to the hemp, you know, where it was like, okay, we can use this, it's a lot cheaper, we can produce it locally. And then now the soy paste was a byproduct. Again, trash, really, and that's what it should have been, trash. But it's like, no, we're going to market this as a health food.
Yeah.
Cholesterol free.
Interesting.
And all of the like. And this would be great for the vegan vegetarians. You know, we're going to pass this off and package it nicely. Just like they package the meat and other things nicely. And pass it off as a health food. You know, and again, when I touched on beans earlier, if it doesn't sprout, then it's like we probably shouldn't eat it.
Right.
You know, so the soybean is not going to sprout. It is not a food that we should eat. Period. So I've seen a lot of damage. I don't have to look at a scientific journal to validate what I've seen with my own eyes with young children and with elders alike. You know, from eating the dangers of eating soy. So that's really, just wanted to touch on that. Now,
what are some of those dangers or some of those experiences that you've seen?
Well, again, the biggest thing what it does is it inhibits mineral absorption.
Interesting.
So it has a compound. It starts with I think it's called trypsin or something like that.
Okay.
Where it will inhibit calcium. It can block, that absorption of what we're trying to get from food. And then it will also wreak havoc on our hormones, loaded with estrogen. So it's going to be bad for not only men, but women as well. So it will, and I even, like my first child, she developed cavities, like right out the bat, right out the gate, and she was addicted to soy. I had to wean her off the soy. Her mom was vegetarian, and so I'm seeing this not only, I'm seeing this with my own children.
Right.
And then, I've seen lots of, I've seen a few elders, longtime vegetarians come down with cancer.
Oh, wow.
But they're eating largely soy-based products. So those are just a few examples. And again, there's a lot of research out there to support, not only what I'm saying, but what a lot of other people are saying. It's very difficult to process and digest. Sure. Anybody who even when I started drinking soy milk.
I was going to ask you about that. But I didn't want to go off on
I never really had it. I never really had, even though I've been following this lifestyle for probably close to 30 years, I never really had a soy phase. Because that's what, if you're going to be vegan, vegetarian, and if you still want to eat like some cooked foods, I mean, obviously there's a conscious way to do that, but if you're going to eat like fake soy, Burger King burgers and and Morning Star and that kind of thing, you want that to be a temporary stop.
Interesting.
Or something where you just stay there maybe for a few months as you transition to real food. Because if you make that to be not only like something you do, but your lifestyle for years and years, maybe decades, and it's not going to end well if you're doing it for health reasons. Now, there's a large part of the vegan community is not health oriented. Let's be very clear about that. Yeah. Like a lot of vegans, and that's what's been really interesting for me, is to see like there's a huge motivation of peoples that are doing the vegan lifestyle. And to me, it's all good. Look, get in where you fit in. It's all good. If that works for you, then that works. But like for me, health is the one of the primary motivations. Everything else being like okay, but and as far as the vegan movement, as far as those that are really drawn or passionate about veganism, largely it's because of like maybe cruelty to animals.
Sure. And
that's a good reason. There's no knock against that. But what ends up happening is those vegetarians will tend to, eat more of the They'll eat more of the substitutes. We see the Beyond Meat stock on the stock market now. It's going through the roof. A lot of hoopla, and this is great. this is great for the overall movement.
Sure.
But at some point, if you want health, longevity, wellness, then you have to come over to the raw side. You have to eat more, at least predominantly raw, if you want to have like longevity and good health, for sure.
So if I'm a vegan or vegetarian or a parent and I want to start making some of these raw meals for my family, for myself, where are my first steps? Like, how do I go about that? And especially if I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I have Morningstar in my freezer right now. Like, I was going to have veggie burger for dinner. Right. Now, not so much, right?
Right. Well, and see, and that's where, that's probably one of the greatest, like, stumbling blocks that most people face, because now, you know, especially now for me having a restaurant, like that is, you know, because the thing is like, when I look at it from a restaurant business standpoint, most restaurant businesses are bringing in foods already pre-processed.
Right.
Everything is coming in boxes and cans and you know, already pretty much pre-cooked, ready to go. You know, they just got to do a little heating and assembly, and it's like, boom, here it is. This is, you know, and they're using the worst methods because, again, those are convenient. But we know, we've been educated now that leads to a health inconvenience. So with the raw food, it's like now we're taking ingredients as nature produced them, and we're now going to work them and cultivate them. So like anything, it's a process. It's a stair-step process, meaning like when I teach my classes, I start at the very basic of, like, you know, in terms of taking a food and creating. So the first and simplest, easiest things to do is juices. A lot of times it's just maybe one ingredient, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 at the most. Like, you know, let's say like one juice I'm thinking of is like, I'll put apple, pear, ginger, lime, mint. Those are 5 ingredients, right? So I'm just blending all of those ingredients, straining it, you know, maybe adding some coconut water. That's 6 ingredients. So, but even more simply, let's say cucumber and lime. You know, again, 2 ingredients. Maybe I add celery to it. Okay, 3 ingredients. Very simple. And then I go from there. Maybe I go in the direction of still on the high liquid, but I go from, like, let's say that to a soup. So the only difference between a soup and a juice is maybe I'm adding a little oil to it now to give it a little base. It's still mostly water, but now I'm adding like maybe a little cream, like maybe from avocado, which again is a fruit. Or I'm adding maybe a little oil, maybe coconut oil or olive oil if it's savory. Or dressing. A dressing in a soup is not that much different. A dressing probably gonna have a little bit more oil than water. A soup is gonna have a little more, but all the ingredients are now the same. So now we got juices. We went to soups and dressings. So we got the soup and the dressing. Now with the dressing, we got the salads. So now you start to learn how to, and you see how this builds. You see how this is now building, right? And then from side dishes, and now we can start to create appetizers, and then ultimately entree dishes. So the entrees are the, like, you know, that's the prize. That's the main attraction. You know, that's the headliner. You know, so once so that's the progression. So, you know, it's not something that obviously for the novice, it's not impossible, but, you know, in our multimedia, you know, access to information at the speed of light almost, certainly not impossible. There's a lot of free information out there. I mean, when I was learning this, you know, I didn't have the technology that's available today, so there's no excuse. You know, so with that being said, you know, you just start with that. You start with those things, how you know what I just said in mind, and build on that. Start making juices. Most people can make a juice. You start playing around, making different salads, and then the salads start to, because a lot of times in most of the entrees, they may be components of different sides and appetizers.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just really adding maybe a layer or two on top of a side dish,
Right.
and piecing it together or assembling it, and now you're creating an entree dish.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, so and then of course desserts.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a lot of free information out there. Just jump in there. And the thing is like I said, it's not convenient.
Right.
It's not easy.
Right.
But there's a reward. There's a convenience, and that's your
health.
That's your well-being.
Yeah.
And that's priceless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, before I do want to make sure we give you enough time to let the people know where they can find you and all that good stuff. But I did want to circle back to the fasting.
Oh,
right?
yeah. We didn't
really get a chance. We only got a couple minutes here, but I do want you to at least touch on that and its importance in the lifestyle and the overall well-being of your message.
Yeah, the main thing I'll say about the fasting is our bodies are meant to fast. And the reason, the biggest thing that really makes it very commonsensical is like everything we eat, even for me, eating raw food for 20 years, everything we eat, our body will hold on to some part of that. So whether you're eating raw vegan, organic, or you're eating whatever, your body's going to hold on. So if you're eating whatever, it's probably going to hold on to a lot more. It's not going to be. So what happens? Well, what happens is that holding on, again, the body is going to store it in different places. And it's so important to fast because it's designed to hold on to it, because if we were living, without farms and without, in our organized world, and we had to depend on, nature to get whatever we need to get, there would be periods of famine. There would be periods where we wouldn't have food available. And it's during those times when our body starts to feed on that extra. So it becomes critical to fast, and it's the ultimate healer. There is no other natural or unnatural or better way to heal the body than to fast. So that, and it doesn't matter if from, like, say a pain or an ache in your body to something internal. Maybe especially something internal, like that's going on with your digestion. Your body's just saying, like, look, please give me a rest. Please take a break from eating, because that's what's doing it. So, it is a beautiful. It is freedom. When we start to eat, when we stop and eat, and we bring more juice, and the magical thing about juice. Because you could do breath fast, you can do water fast, coconut water. Again, that's what my book talks about, the coconut water being the ideal fast. But even with coconut water and fresh juice, the magical thing about fresh juices and coconut water is those become the natural detergent for the body, the internal cleansers, detergent. I love that. To use that analogy, because we know detergent. We use detergent to wash our clothes, to wash our dishes, but we don't think about that in terms of like being that. So that's what juice does for the body. So it's really, everyone owes it to themselves. It's by far the best thing you can do for yourself, no question.
Absolutely. Well, where you spoke a lot about the book, we didn't get a chance to get into it. Where can they pick up the book for some more of these gems? And some of the other lessons that
you can go on my website, chefkhepra.com, or keprasrawfoodjuicebar.com, KHEPRAS, rawfoodjuicebar.com, or just simply chefkhepra.com. That website is also my restaurant. We're rebranding, as I mentioned. I mean, we're still Kepra's Raw Food Juice Bar, but we're rebranding as Khepra Hemp Burger Cafe and Juice Bar.
Okay.
So that's on my website.
And where's that located for those who are in the area?
Yeah, 408 H Street Northeast.
Okay, I'm down there a lot too.
Yeah, we're on H Street. Not far from Union Station, and I mean, it's a a lot of investment is going into that corridor.
Absolutely.
So a lot of new businesses are coming up in that street. So we're still there. We're still relevant. So yeah, my book is on my website. You can or if you want to get a Kindle version, you can go on Amazon and buy it on Kindle.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not mad at that, but yeah, you can definitely purchase it from the website.
And for your classes that you spoke about, are those?
Yeah, well, the next class I'll be doing is a retreat.
Okay,
Jamaica, Jamaica retreat. That'll be in August, but the flyer's on my website.
Okay.
ChefKepra.com.
Great.
Yeah.
And if they want to find you on social media?
Social media, Instagram, Chef Khepra. The business page is Hemp Burger Cafe. Facebook is Khepra, Chef Khepra. Mostly on Facebook, mostly Instagram, Facebook. I have a LinkedIn page, and I also, what's the other one? I don't know, but yeah, I try to limit it. I find a balance.
Yeah,
it's a good balance.
Sure.
There's a balance in everything.
Always
So
a balance.
yeah, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Chef Khepra, I really appreciate you coming. I learned a lot. We didn't even get to half the things I wanted to get to, so I really appreciate you coming by.
Oh no, thanks for having me.
And for you all, if you want to view this episode or more of our episodes, you can visit our website, www.bookitnowtv.com. You can head to our YouTube page, Book It Now with Q, or go to our Instagram, Book It Now TV. I want to thank you all again for joining me on this continued journey of empathy, love, and understanding. And as I tell you every week, as no one has told you that they love you today, remember that I do, and I always will. Good night.